Greetings. Excellent.
Alright, it's like 2 in the morning, and just looking at some comments, and I recently posted a video where I talk about a little bit about Casey Neistat and Mr. Steele and them getting in trouble with the FAA and etc. I also talked about drone laws, which there's technically no laws governing the way you fly a UAV if it's recreational. And the FAA has no jurisdiction, especially now, since the drone registration law was appealed. And what do I mean by that? Well, there are guidelines that say you have to fly a drone less than 400 feet. If you fly 5 miles from an airport, you have to notify the tower that you're going to be flying. You can't fly over people. You can't fly at night. But the thing is, these are guidelines. They're not actually written law. There's no law anywhere, federal or state, that says you cannot fly higher than 400 feet with a drone or any kind of UAV. There isn't. I looked, and I'll admit, is it possible that there's something out there that I didn't see? Yeah, sure, I could be wrong, but I couldn't find anything, and that's what I'm basically saying. But the guidelines are there to keep us from getting in trouble. Because if I were to go fly 3 miles from an airport and I fly really high over 400 feet and I get in the way of an airplane and it causes a major issue, then, well, I'm going to get arrested, and not for flying a drone, but for reckless endangerment or something. Some other law that I actually broke, non-specific to the drone. So we should follow those rules. I had somebody comment on my video that, you know, I don't think he really listened to my video. I think he got maybe halfway through, or he perused through and started writing a comment before hearing everything I had to say. And I don't fault him for that. But he if you look at that video and you look in the comments, you'll see he says, oh, he was 3 miles from Newark Airport, blah, 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 and I reported him to FAA, blah, 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 blah. All right, so here is that post that I was talking about, and I blurred out the poster's name because it's not about bashing him. In his mind, he was right. That's part of the problem. Everybody needs to familiarize themselves with the rules and really take a look at the situation before they go ahead and calling the FAA hotline and wasting their time. In this post, and you can go read it, still on the page for the video, in this post he says that he was about 3 miles from Newark International Airport, blah-de-blah, that he's busted, and he got another friend is in trouble too for flying the thing, and, whatever. Here's the thing. I took those coordinates, and I looked at a sectional map, and I looked at Airmap, which Airmap is great. It tells you everything. You get information very quickly from Airmap. I put the coordinates in, and guess what? Casey was not breaking any regulations. He was not flying within 3 miles of Newark International Airport. He was not flying in a no-fly zone. There were flight advisories, which are basically, there's a whole bunch of heliports around, and you don't have to not fly when there's a heliport. You got to watch out, because basically helicopters can fly anywhere. They go up and they go down, and they can go low, and if you hear a helicopter, you should probably land your drone. That's basically what that means. Now, he was really close to Teterboro, okay, and he was right on the edge of the 5 mile mark from Teterboro. And let's just say that if this was an airport where you should call the tower and say, "Hey, I'm flying," you're right on the 5 mile mark. Come on, like, you really? Oh, it's 4.9 miles from the airport. I'm going to call the FAA. Teterboro is a relief airport. It does not have a tower. When the relief airport is needed, they will put a flight advisory in effect, which will make that entire area red on Airmap. And flight restricted, which means for that period of time, you can't fly there. Right now, and when Casey was flying, there was no advisory, and there hasn't been for a while. So that being said, even if he was flying within 3 miles of Teterboro, he's still not breaking any regulations. And I'm sure that this is probably what this gentleman was looking at when he called the FAA. But listen, people, it's a waste of time. Now, this message I want for anybody who might watch a video where somebody may be flying a drone and feels the need to contact the FAA because maybe they're 3 miles from an airport. Maybe they monetize their video and, you need Part 107. The thing is, we have no way of knowing if somebody has permission. Like, I can go 3 miles outside of Newark. I can call the Newark Tower and say, listen, hey, I'm going to fly here. It's 3 miles. Here's the elevation. Here's where I'm going to be. I'm not going to fly higher than 100 feet because it's a racing quad, and you typically fly pretty low and around obstacles, so I'm not even going to get above the tree line typically. And they're going to say, God, thanks for letting us know. Okay, whatever. Great, thanks. And when they do that, they note it. And they mark it on their map where I'm at. And, they want to know how long you can be there. And they also like it when you call them when you're done so that they can take that off the map. And the reason they do that is because they want to know what kind of activities are going on that could possibly cause an issue. And let's say a light aircraft was coming in and they're flying low for some reason, and they were about to go in that area. The tower would say, listen, you're not going to want to fly over that area because somebody's flying a small, UAV, head to this course or whatever, something like that. I mean, that's not exactly how it's going to go down, but the point I'm trying to make is they want to know, okay, so that they're aware in case something happens where they really need to know that you're there so that they can make some kind of adjustment. And that makes a lot of sense, because that's what it's all about. And if they said, go ahead and fly, and I fly 3 miles from this airport, and I film it, and I do whatever on my racing quad, and I put it on YouTube, and, and I go, hey, and I'm 3 miles from an airport, and I fly, and somebody sees the video and goes, they can't fly 3 miles from an airport. What are they out of their mind? I'm going to call the FAA and get them in trouble. And here's the problem. I had permission. I don't have to tell you in the video I called the tower. I probably would because there's too many people out there that are just going to do stuff like call the FAA, in a knee-jerk reaction because some people don't have anything better to do. The other thing is, what if I'm Part 107? I go and fly 3 miles from an airport. I put the video on YouTube. He can't fly 3 miles from an airport. I'm going to call the FAA. And here we go again. I had every right to be there in this situation. And here's the problem. The FAA has to investigate any report. If you call them and say that a clown with wings was flying 3 miles around the airport in an area, as stupid as that sounds, and as much as they know you're full of shit, some poor FAA investigators got to go out there and make sure a clown with wings isn't flying around 3 miles from an airport. They have to investigate every report. So you just called the FAA for somebody who was legitimately flying their UAV in a way that they were allowed to fly, and you wasted resources. And I'm not telling you just to ignore things. If you see somebody doing something really dangerous and you really know that it's really dangerous, then maybe you should call. We're talking about putting people's lives in jeopardy here. Other than that, I think maybe you remember it's YouTube. It's a video, and videos are two-dimensional. You can see what the storyteller is telling you and what the storyteller is showing you, but you can't see everything else. You can't see behind the camera. You have no idea what other kind of plots are going on. You have no idea what kind of plans. You have no idea if it's scripted or unscripted. You don't know unless you're told. Somebody can go out and make a video looking like they're flying dangerously, and it could be a special effect, it could be CGI, it could be a chroma key, it could, who knows, it could be a skit, a farce, just screwing around. And you calling the FAA, you're wasting their time. So if you're going to report people for flying UAVs because you feel like they're unsafe, and I don't mean just, oh God, I don't know, that it kind of looks unsafe to me. No, I mean, it's unsafe. Like they hit somebody or they almost hit somebody and people are screaming. It's legitimate. Really doing something wrong. Maybe you should contact the FAA. If somebody's flying 3 miles from an airport, I wouldn't contact them about that, because how do you know? How do you know? You're wasting their time. Maybe a better idea is to send that poster, the video poster, a message saying, hey, listen, I was just curious. I saw your video where you were flying 3 miles from an airport, and I was just wondering, did you have permission to fly there, or are you Part 107? Because I'd really hate to contact the FAA if you were totally allowed to be there. And maybe that person would send you a message and go, yeah, I'm Part 107. I get paid for making these videos. Of course I have my Part 107. Hey, but thanks for the message. Oh, I didn't have to call the FAA. So listen, just calm down. Now, I understand Casey Neistat. This guy is huge. He's got so many YouTube videos. This guy makes bank. I truly believe that he's covered by either Part 107 or a 333 exemption. Listen, you don't have to have your Part 107, and you don't have to have a pilot's license to fly commercially. You only need to have somebody who has 107 or is a licensed pilot with you. If you have somebody who has Part 107 or is a licensed pilot with you while you're flying to tell you, hey, you can't do that because it's dangerous, or you shouldn't do this, or shouldn't, basically making sure that person is staying within safe operating procedures in the eyes of the FAA. For commercial RC flight, you're good to go. Now, here's the thing. Casey Neistat's brother is a pilot. I saw one. I'm not a fan of Casey Neistat, meaning I'm not subscribed to him. I watch his videos from time to time. I don't hate him. I don't dislike him. I don't love him. I think he's kind of a cool guy, and I think he's lucky in that he's been able to make this kind of career and life for himself. I think it's pretty cool. I'm sorry, I do. I'm not a giant fan. I don't run around going, Casey Neistat. I don't stick up for the guy because I'm like, Casey Neistat. Look, his brother is a pilot. And in one of his videos that I watched, he said, my brother's a pilot. He's come, not word for word here, but he basically said, my brother's coming over. He's a pilot. And apparently, we can't go fly wherever because it's, we might be breaking some rules. And that tells me that he talked to his brother, and his brother said, hey, you can't fly it this way. I'll come over. And that would allow him to fly it if he's in an area that would require somebody with Part 107 or a pilot's license to fly it. That would tell me that Casey Neistat's in the know, and he probably has had somebody with the proper certifications with him to be able to do this and make money. And I watched a handful of his videos where he's flying his drone, and in a lot of them, I caught like elbows and other things, and like in one, there was somebody with a laptop right there with something set up around. And it was like, it looked like he's just out on his own, flying his drone, but he had people there. This guy, I wouldn't be surprised if he has people with him almost all the time that are off camera, because he's that big now. And if that's the case, if he doesn't have Part 107, he's got somebody with Part 107 with him, whether it's his brother or somebody else. I don't think he's going to get in trouble because he flew near an airport. I don't think he's going to get in trouble because he's making money on his videos. I think he's going to get in trouble because he flew over people and because he flew in areas he really shouldn't have flew, especially if he's Part 107. And I think he's going to get fined by the FAA. And that's a guess based on what I can see. I'm not saying I'm right, and I'm not saying that there's no other possibilities. I'm saying based on what I see, I think that's the case. But really, honestly, just relax. It's YouTube. You know, somebody's flying a drone and they're not bothering anybody, and they're 3 miles from an airport. Dude, 3 miles from an airport is pretty far. You know, especially with like a racing quad. Like in the case of like Mr. Steele. I mean, Mr. Steele, he was trespassing. You know, that's what he got in trouble for. And he got investigated by the FAA. Obviously somebody went nuts and blah, 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 blah about him and whatever. And the FAA has to investigate. It sounds like everything turned out all right with that. But, you know, it's a case of somebody watching YouTube and going, they shouldn't do that. Oh, it's my responsibility now. They shouldn't do that. I have to call the FAA and I have to get them in trouble because they shouldn't do that, because I have nothing better to do in my life but than to report people because I am a lonely person and I have no life. Let's stop the nonsense. There are like real issues in this world. There are real issues in this world. Real problems. Somebody flying a drone 3 miles from an airport is not a real problem. Take a deep breath. It's entertainment. Relax. And just watch the next video.